Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion,
I'm Scint.
and we are continuing our exploration of Castlevania Circle of the Moon and our discussion of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
What's your favorite Castlevania monster?
Oh, that's a tough question. I do like the zombie dragons I just fought. There's a few others. I would have to think about it for a while to say which one is my favorite.
Yeah, it's not really a fair question because, I can't answer it because the entirety of my knowledge of Castlevania comes from watching you get thrown around like a ragdoll in this, and Brian David Gilbert's Unraveled on which is the sexiest Castlevania monster. So I'm not really sure I have enough information to go on here. But it is interesting in that, well,
I have to
given what? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I do have to admit I do like the Aluron or the Venus Weed or whatever the various games translations of their name is. I do think they're cool monsters, which is why they showed up in our Pathfinder game.
True. What I was going to say is, it's interesting that we can have this conversation because of, well, given what a monster is in its normal connotation, having a favorite monster seems to kind of go against the grain with what the word is intended to convey.
That's the internet for you. Here is this horrifying thing that is supposed to be emblematic of all of the horrible things about this or that. And the internet goes, I like it. It's going to be my new favorite thing, or I'm going to make it my hot girl/boyfriend.
The term is waifu, or husbando, I believe. But, yeah. I just find it interesting, because, well, especially in the context of Frankenstein, monster is not meant to be something that you have as a favorite, at least if you're listening to our, oh-so-trustworthy narrator. It's supposed to be an abomination of creation, something too utterly horrifying to be allowed to exist. The term itself is meant to imply it will never, ever be considered a part of polite society. So, the obvious question here. What is a monster exactly?
So the literal definition of monster is usually some manner of creature that is inhuman in some way. Monsters typically... It's one of those categories that's too wide to really give a thorough definition of. But, you'll have some monsters that are kind of humanoid, such as, say, werewolf, or vampire, or mummies, or creatures like the creature in Frankenstein. And then you'll have other things that aren't humanoid at all that are considered monsters, such as dragons and monstrous animals and cryptids and things like that.
Yep, so we're looking right now at physical monsters.
Yep. I was starting with the basic definition before we moved into the metaphorical definition.
That's fine. But yeah, I think that's what we need to really look at today is, because honestly, Frankenstein is one of many, many books to take a look at this whole distinction of what really is a monster. And at this point, you don't even have to read the book to know the meaning. Intelligence is knowing that Frankenstein is not the monster. Wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster. But obviously we're going to unpack that anyway.
Yep.
So when it comes to physical monsters, the impression I got from your description is something that is barred from humanity either by its obviousness of being inhuman or its closeness to the uncanny valley, and that it's close enough that it really should be human, but something about it is just wrong and your brain cannot deal with it, such as in the case of vampires. That gargoyle looks so dirty. Like, am I wrong? Like, it looks kind of like a cow.
I'm not sure what they were going for with there. But then again, not all gargoyles looked super monstrous.
I know.
That's
Goliath is my favorite.
And also not the one I was meaning, but also fair. But anyway, I forgot what I was going to say before we got interrupted by Gargoyle.
I blame Puck.
Always a fair option.
Especially because he's one of the fair folk. Never mind, we're getting way into the gargoyles weeds here. But, yeah, like, gargoyles, in this instance, would be monsters that are monsters because they are too far removed from humanity and not, like, a natural creature. The creature is more in the uncanny valley monster of, it's trying to be human,
but it doesn't quite
isn't,
make it.
And my brain cries trying to process it.
Which is something I noted in the earlier discussion we had regarding Victor creates the creature, but only when it is animate and starts and alive and starts moving around does he freak out about, oh no, it's ugly. My current theory on that is when it was just an inanimate construction, it lacked some of the horror to its appearance because it didn't have that. It wasn't motion. There was no motion to it. It didn't have life, and that when he brought the creature to life, that crossed the line that made it horrific into that uncanny valley. Now that's just my personal read of the subject. There's no explicit statement to that effect in the book, as far as I can tell.
It seems to, like, I think the book agrees with you, because, like, if it had freaked him out beforehand, I'm giving Victor a lot of credit here, I think he would have stopped. Like, if it had looked horrifying before it started moving, he wouldn't have finished the job. But in true, like, taking your toddler to Chuck E. Cheese fashion, it's not until the hollow-eyed rat animatronic starts moving that they start crying. Now I want pizza.
But not that pizza.
No, I do not want the sad childhood-ruining nostalgia stripping pizza. We've already talked about that at length, though.
Yes, we have. That goes back to one of our oldest episodes. That goes back to our first episode. No, not our first. The first Harry Potter episode. Still, pretty far back.
I'm sorry, Chuck E. Cheese is a deep cut.
I mean, no, I'm right there with you.
It is the skee ball that Sisyphus must push up the mountain. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Let's move on.
So,
but yes,
we have the quote-unquote monster in the creation, the creature, in its most traditional definition. But, as we have stated many times, it can be very thoroughly argued that the creature is not monstrous as a person, the way the word is used euphemistically. The creature
That's
is
actually something that can be up for debate. But go ahead.
Well, that's why I said it can be argued.
Yeah, this actually comes up with my kids all the time. The monster is not an unthinking being. He is fully sapient. He is very, very aware of his feelings and trying to cope with them. So he is very, very sympathetic. But this does not change the fact that he actively commits murder multiple times. And to some, that is the sticking point. The taking of another life, especially one who cannot fight back, as in the case of, William and Elizabeth, is crossing a line that you can never come back from. He remains a monster. But I would argue he is not the greatest monster in this book.
And I think both of those things can be true at the same time. There is no cap of one monster per book. As we have well observed from some of our prior stories, there is room for all of you to be terrible.
This probably means we should hold off on Beauty and the Beast for a while.
Oh dear.
Look, I love it. It's a good fairy tale, but we've kind of done the what's a monster thing for a while. We can save that for later, much later.
But yeah, I'm just gonna run past this stupid demon and not have to deal with his nonsense any longer than I absolutely have to. There we go. Nope, let me out. Yep, just tank the damage, Nathan. Ah, almost made it. So, to get back to the point I was trying to make before I died, and the point that you were also making alongside, just... In addition to the more literal definition of monster as discussed before, there's also the more euphemistic one of a person who does immoral, harmful, or otherwise problematic things. A person can be euphemistically referred to as a monster if their actions cause harm, or are perceived to cause harm or disruption to society. This is...
Or if they just commit food crimes.
Well, yes, that's taking the euphemistic language and using it for hyperbole, which is always fun.
I don't know. I would say that the peanut butter cup is truly monstrous.
That's because it's Josh and he's an avatar of chaos.
I should not watch Mythical Kitchen before we do these episodes.
Could possibly stop that at just should not watch Mythical Kitchen sometimes, but on the other hand, it can be a lot of stupid fun. Okay, let's see if I can do this and get out alive this time. Ah, are you gonna chain me in this corner? Okay, I'm free. No, go away! Haha! So, anyway, now that I'm done getting distracted, we have, as Scint mentioned, the creature being compared with his behavior with that of Victor, and as mentioned in several prior episodes, the book seems to go out of its way to paint the creature in a more sympathetic light. And to some degree, as even more sympathetic than Victor, until people start dying. And that it's very easy to interpret the story, especially the part that the creature himself is narrating, as being more inclined to be generous to the creature's position and point of view. And that's part of what leads to the often stated interpretation, as Scint hinted towards earlier, of no, Frankenstein is the real monster, and no, we're not talking about the creature.
Yeah, and this is where I think intentionality comes into play. Because what's more monstrous? A person who is just, a bad person who harms people because it pleases them, or someone who is completely and utterly unaware of the harm they cause to those around them. That, to me, almost feels Lovecraftian or Godzilla-like. To wreak such havoc on the area around you and the people close to you, and not even notice it.
There is a conversation I've seen on the internet a couple of times that goes along the lines of, why can people say that this mass-murdering psychopath character is their favorite character, that they love reading the stories about them, but this other character whose only crime is not being particularly interesting to read about is such an enormous crime to like the literary canon.
For that, I would have to say it's because literature hinges on the conflict. It can be the major conflict of the book or a minor conflict between two characters, but if there is no conflict, there is no story. So your fully aware character could have a lot more conflict than the one who's just walking down the street and trips over something and oops, apocalypse button.
Well, the answer that was given in response in the original version of this was, for within the realm of literature, where your purpose is to entertain the reader, there can be no crime greater than to be uninteresting to be read about. An evil character who is causing great tension and drama and problems is interesting to read about. A character that is annoying is not.
Yeah, that's what I mean with it hinges on conflict. An interesting character has all sorts of internal and external conflicts to cope with. But I have a different explanation for why Victor is less sympathetic.
Go ahead.
We live in an era where dodging accountability is as natural to some people as breathing, and society often celebrates them for it.
Yeah.
incredibly refreshing to see some upper crust, self-absorbed narcissist having to face the consequences of his own actions with no one to bail him out, and knowing that there's no escape other than showing compassion, which he is physically incapable of doing. That makes it a lot more satisfying for reasons that I don't think it's easy to articulate, because I hadn't actually put it together until right now on the mic. Watching Victor have to pay the piper after being the architect of his own destruction is just chef's kiss. Good on you, Mary Shelley. But then again, you hung out with Byron and Percy Shelley, so, I mean, you knew.
I was about to say, the story's inspirations did not come from nowhere. But that does bring us to the obvious next question. We have now the creature is monstrous in appearance and to some degree in action. Victor is monstrous in mostly in his lack of action. He is monstrous through his neglect.
Ah, the trolley problem.
I wasn't going to go there because I hadn't put those two together, but it is kind of trolley problem-ish. What is worse? Someone
You can save your entire family, but if you pull the lever, they're gonna know that you pulled the lever. Which means you knew about this problem, which means you're somehow responsible, and they're going to make a sad face at you once.
Not the sad face. Anything but the sad face.
I can't handle the idea of being disapproved of for even 30 seconds. Woe is me. I guess I'll just have to watch everything wither around me. Yeah, that's the monstrous thing right there. I will let everyone in my life be killed before I admit that I screwed up.
It's malice versus negligent arrogance. I'm stumbling over my too many G's here.
Well, and this also brings up the idea of the banality of evil. Victor did not intend to harm anybody with his discoveries. But he did. Because it was just something he was studying, he didn't feel the need to, ask anybody for help. Even when it had gotten out of his control, he didn't bother to fix anything or tell anyone that there was something needing to be fixed. Because, well, I just don't want to. Victor is essentially the guy who got bit by the zombie, but is refusing to tell you he got bit by the zombie.
Yeah. He's that guy, and there's always one guy like that in any of these kinds of stories.
It goes even farther. He's telling you there never was a zombie. What are you talking about? Please don't say these things, they upset me.
Oh no, he doesn't even do that. He's like, there's a thing that is bothering me, and everybody can tell it's bothering me, but I'll tell you about it tomorrow when the incubation period's supposed to be over.
Yep.
And don't mind that I've already been in your proximity for the past 48 hours, and might be contagious, might not. I don't know.
And all I can think right now is that Community episode with the zombies. Yeah, well, you're not special. I got bit 10 minutes ago and I'm fine! Turns into a zombie instantly. But, yeah, it's just... In some regard, negligent narcissism is far, far more damaging than actual malice. But when you combine the two is when you get to real danger. The creation, while monstrous in his appearance, was not... was trying to cause harm to Victor, but clearly torn up about it. Not torn up about it enough to, stop, ultimately. But because there's clear conflict shown in his actions, he comes across as a lot more sympathetic because, you know, he's at least acknowledging I shouldn't have done this, but I see no other choice. Whereas Victor is just like, oh, there's a fire. I can't believe there's a fire in my house. I wish that there was no fire in my house. There's a fire extinguisher. I can't do anything about this fire in my house. I'm gonna go be sad.
And that actually does raise a good point, is there are many people who are called monsters because they have been driven to extremes by their inability to handle things or be recognized for their problems when taking lesser measures. They've tried the peaceful route. They've tried just being open and available to negotiation. They've tried approaching people reasonably, and they've been ignored or blown off or used or double-crossed or one of 1,000 other things that has rendered their ability to engage on a peaceful manner null and void. And they've reached...
Don't get me started on J. Edgar Hoover, please.
I wasn't, but I can...
If there's any figure that made sure that people could not engage with anything peacefully as a matter of his career, because just, I'm good. I'm good.
But yeah, you clearly see where I'm going. Then there's a reason that there's the quote by Martin Luther King of "A riot is the language of the unheard." There's a reason that people do eventually resort to more extreme measures, and
and it gets worse because more I've heard on this. I don't remember if there's a specific quote, but it's they want you to peacefully protest because they can ignore it.
The version of it I've heard is a peaceful protest. A protest that is deemed peaceful by those being protested is not a protest. It is a method by which they can ignore the complaints. I think it goes, yeah. A protest that is acceptable to those being protested is no protest at all. And I mean, that's a rabbit hole we could go down for months.
Yeah, we can probably find a more appropriate book to do it with, though, because there's not really any sign of protest like that in Frankenstein. I'm sure we'll have a book somewhere along the line that does.
Well, the reason I brought it up was because of what you said about the creation. That...
Oh, no, I agree. It's just like the rabbit hole can be saved for later.
Oh, yeah, okay. But yeah, my actual point is with regards to the creation, that he is willing and makes overt attempts to handle things with Victor without resorting completely to violence. He makes his demands of Victor. He apologizes in an oblique way for the deaths of Justine and William?
Yeah.
And as we've said in prior episodes, the death of William very easily could have been an accident. It's fairly unclear in the text. And he tells Victor, this is what I need to survive as a person and to be happy, and I will never bother you again if you finish what you started. And I mean, for all that he compares himself to the devil in later parts of the text, there is a reason that he starts his soliloquy within this particular discourse in the story with comparing himself to Adam in the biblical creation story. Is he is alone, and what he has found around him are so unlike him that they cannot be a true companion. He has no Eve made from his rib. And like the biblical story, he cannot be satisfied with the companionship solely of animals or humans that are as unlike him as animals are unlike to people in that story.
It's such a good quote. Remember, O Frankenstein, be not equitable to every other, and trample upon me alone, to whom thy justice and even thy clemency and affection is most due. Remember that I am thy creature, I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel, whom thou drivest from joy for no misdeed. Everywhere I see bliss, from which I alone am irrevocably excluded. I was benevolent and good, misery made me a fiend. Make me happy, and I shall again be virtuous.
And that comes back to what we were talking about earlier with the whole riot thing. When people in distress and in dire situations are pushed to the breaking point, they react with the force they feel is necessary to get what they need. And the creature is no different. And the creature comes right out and says, I will be happy to not do things like this if I am given the slightest bit of another option. And you are the reason I don't have that option. You have the power.
Victor could use that.
You have the power and moreover the responsibility to fix this. And while I have not been perfect, I have been flawed, as you made me. You have the power, the responsibility, and the capability to repair what you have done wrong. And Victor, long story short, doesn't do it. And the creature responds accordingly. You have taken away the one thing that I needed of you to do as I promised and to live a happy life that is of no concern to you. You have neglected your responsibility and forfeited your ability to do something about it. I will respond with what force I deem appropriate to get what I feel I am due as a being with sentience and with the ability to see to my own well-being.
So I guess the lesson here is we create our own monsters one way or another. There may societal forces often are what lead to monsters. Whether that's the obvious position of I'm going to go out of my way to hurt people, or I don't care how many people get hurt as long as I can pander to the group who has the most money, or I have been so desperate I have to do something to be seen at all. Also, we're getting kind of long here, but monsters are often also used as an allegory for some sort of societal concern.
Yep, and to some degree still are.
And in Frankenstein, it seems to be parenthood when you're not ready for it. Because Victor is, as we've mentioned multiple times, worst dad ever.
Yep. But I think that's where we'll leave it. I think I've grinded around this spot enough. We'll take on this boss next time.
Bye!